All right, let's dive deep into Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. We're using a summary from Bookie to help us unpack this one. It's dense,
Yeah.
but oh man, it's full of fascinating stuff. Get ready for some, I think, surprising insights into human behavior. We're going to kick things off with, well, lobsters, of all things.
Peterson's lobster analogy,
Yeah.
that's got to be one of those memorable parts of his work. He basically argues that just like lobsters, us humans, we've got this dominance hierarchy, and it really affects like our brain chemistry and how we act.
Yeah, I gotta admit, the first time I heard about this whole lobster thing, I was like, what?
What? Yeah.
But honestly, the more I think about it, the more intriguing it gets.
Yeah, it's really a powerful way to show how deep these hierarchical structures are. Like
Yeah.
they're in living things, period. Peterson points to serotonin, and this is a neurotransmitter. It has a big role in regulating mood, motivation, even social behavior. In lobsters, their serotonin levels, they're directly tied to their spot in the dominance hierarchy. So the higher up they are, boom, more serotonin, more confidence, they're assertive, even physically bigger.
So, like, the top lobsters are strutting around feeling like kings, and the ones lower down, they're less likely to challenge the top dogs, maybe even feeling defeated before they even start.
Exactly. And what's wild is when a lobster loses a fight, their brain chemistry literally changes. Less serotonin, more withdrawn. Their posture even gets all submissive. It's like that defeat, it's hardwired into their nervous system.
Whoa, okay, now that's where it gets really interesting. And maybe a little, I don't know, unsettling. Are you saying the same thing could be happening to us? Like our wins and losses, could they actually be changing our brain chemistry too?
That's exactly what Peterson's getting at. He's saying humans, just like those lobsters, we're vulnerable to this kind of neurochemical rewiring based on winning and losing in social hierarchy. Think about a time when you nailed a big goal, like really achieved something. You felt that surge of confidence, right? Maybe even felt bigger somehow.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You're walking taller, feeling like you can take on the world.
Exactly. And it's not just a feeling. Your brain is actually flooded with serotonin, and that reinforces those positive feelings. It reinforces those behaviors. But then on the flip side, when we keep hitting setbacks or we feel defeated chronically, our serotonin levels, they can plummet, and that leads to a whole bunch of negative effects.
So we're talking about low mood, no motivation, maybe even withdrawing from being social.
Exactly. And that's where Peterson's advice comes in. He says we got to be aware of these neurochemical things, and we've got to actively take steps to fight back against that loser lobster spiral.
So how do we avoid becoming those defeated lobsters, always hiding in our shell?
Peterson's big on establishing a really solid foundation of physical well-being. Things like prioritizing sleep, eating a protein-rich breakfast, even just having good posture.
It's interesting he focuses on those basic things, but I guess I can see how it's all connected. I mean, when you're exhausted and haven't eaten, it's hard to find the energy to deal with challenges, right?
Right. Peterson says when we ignore our physical needs, we're more likely to feel stressed, anxious, overwhelmed. And that sets the stage for those neurochemical changes we were talking about. But then when we feel physically strong and we have energy, we project that confidence. We project success, and that can actually change how others see us. It creates opportunities for positive experiences.
So it's like those small things, standing up straight, eating good food. They're actually signals to our brains and to the world around us, and that sets us up for a more positive, more empowered experience.
Exactly. It's all about creating this positive feedback loop. Our physical well-being helps our mental state, and that leads to more good stuff happening, and that reinforces those positive changes in our brain.
So we're kind of priming ourselves for success from the inside out. And this all ties into what Peterson says about personal responsibility, right? We're not just, victims of our circumstances or our brain chemistry. We can make choices that change those things in a positive way.
Absolutely. We build on that physical well-being, and then Peterson says we got to be deliberate about our goals.
So it's more than just feeling good physically. It's about making our actions match our hopes and maybe challenging some of those ideas we have about what it means to win or lose in life, right?
You got it. And that's what we'll dig into more next time. Peterson's ideas about setting goals and choosing the right game. It really makes us look at what motivates us and face those voices in our heads that hold us back. Picking up on goal setting with Peterson, it's so interesting how he brings in this idea of playing the right game. It really connects with what you were saying about aligning our actions with what we want to do, what we hope for.
Yeah, I'm really curious about that. What does he mean by playing the right game exactly?
Well, it's about realizing that we often judge ourselves, like measure our success, against things that might not actually fit with our own values or talents. We get caught up comparing ourselves to others or chasing goals that society says are important, even if they don't really mean much to us deep down.
Oh, I totally get that. That feeling of going after something that's supposed to make you happy, but it just leaves you empty.
Yeah, Peterson would call that playing the wrong game. It's like forcing yourself into a shape that doesn't fit. You
Well,
might achieve some outward success, but it costs you something. Your well-being, your sense of purpose.
so how do we even figure out what those wrong games are? And how do we change course? How do we know what really lines up with who we are, our values?
Peterson says we got to get to know ourselves better. And part of that is facing that internal critic you talked about. That voice we all have that's always judging us, comparing us to others.
Oh man, my inner critic could win a gold medal in negativity, I swear.
Right. But Peterson's not saying to try and silence that critic. He says engage with it, like really look at the standard that's holding you to. A lot of times those standards are just random or they come from other people's expectations. They have nothing to do with our true selves.
So we've got to question those assumptions, ask ourselves, is this what I really want, or am I just trying to make someone else happy?
Exactly. It's about taking back our own choices and picking goals that actually excite us, that
Yeah.
motivate us, not the ones that leave us feeling resentful or like we're never good enough.
And I guess that involves being honest with ourselves about what we're good at and what we're not so good at, acknowledging our strengths and our weaknesses.
You got it. Peterson is big on self-awareness, understanding our talents and our limits. He wants us to ask, what am I good at? And maybe even more importantly, what do I enjoy, even if I'm not the best?
I love that perspective. It's not about being perfect or trying to be good at everything. It's about finding that sweet spot where our talents and what we're passionate about come together, choosing the game where we can truly thrive, even if it's not the most popular or prestigious one.
Exactly. And once we've figured out our right game, Peterson gives some really practical tips for setting goals and actually achieving them. He's big on starting small, breaking down those big, scary aspirations into steps we can handle. Remember how we talked about those serotonin boosts?
Oh, yeah. Even hitting those small goals can make you feel so accomplished, like you're getting somewhere.
Exactly. And Peterson says, celebrate those wins, no matter how small. Acknowledge the progress. Reinforce those positive changes in your brain. He also talks about being specific and realistic with our goals.
So instead of, I want to be more successful, it's more like defining what success means for you and then setting clear, achievable steps to get there.
Exactly. And if you're constantly frustrated or resentful about a goal, Peterson says that might be a sign that it's not the right goal for you. It's about being honest with yourself and adjusting your course if you need to.
It's like he's encouraging this constant conversation between what we want to achieve and what's actually happening in our lives. We set goals, take action, see how it's going, and then make changes if we need to.
Precisely. And as we go through this process of self-discovery, of setting goals, Peterson brings in another really important concept, living a truthful life.
Hmm, that feels like a big jump from lobsters and goal setting. How does truth tie into all this personal responsibility, this idea of pursuing goals that matter to us?
It's all connected, really. Peterson says living truthfully isn't just about, like, not telling lies. It's about this deeper commitment to honesty with ourselves and the world around us. It's about facing those uncomfortable truths that we often want to just ignore.
Okay, I'm curious, what kind of uncomfortable truths are we talking about here?
It could be anything. Owning up to our own flaws, dealing with tough emotions, or confronting a situation that's causing us pain.
So it's kind of like facing those problems we talked about before, but on a deeper level.
Exactly. Peterson says those little lies we tell ourselves, those convenient excuses, they chip away at our integrity, they hold us back. He uses this chilling phrase, the bait used by the father of lies. It describes how those seemingly tiny deceptions can lead us down a really bad path.
It's like those tiny cracks in a dam, right? They can eventually cause the whole thing to collapse.
Exactly. And to avoid that, Peterson says we got to start with being honest with ourselves. Pay attention to those times when you want to justify your actions, blame someone else, avoid responsibility. Those are the cracks in our facade of truth.
It's like we have to shine a light on those dark corners of our minds where we hide those uncomfortable truths.
Exactly. And as we become more aware of those self-deceptions, we can start challenging them. We can ask, is this really true, or am I just trying to make myself feel better?
It sounds like a process of constantly checking ourselves, questioning our own stories.
It is. And it's not easy, but Peterson argues that this commitment to truth, it's essential for living a life that matters.
So how does someone actually do that?
She says, don't lie and don't do things that you despise.
It's powerful, right?
He's tying our actions directly to our values, to our sense of integrity.
I love how Peterson connects truth and integrity to this idea of a meaningful life. It's like when we're honest with ourselves and living by our values, our actions just naturally lead to a sense of purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. And he builds on that foundation of truth and integrity. Then he brings in this rule that might seem a bit, I don't know, unexpected. Treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping.
Oh, wow. That one really jumps out. It's like turning that sense of responsibility and care inward towards ourselves.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we deserve the same kindness, compassion, support that we would give to someone we love. We're so hard on ourselves, setting these impossible standards, beating ourselves up for every little mistake, every flaw. But Peterson says that self-criticism, if it goes unchecked, it can be really destructive.
I think we all know that inner critic, right? Always whispering doubts, criticisms, like it's a negative roommate who never pays rent, but always complains about the mess.
Uh-huh. That's a great way to put it. And Peterson, he says, don't try to silence that critic. We need to learn how to manage it, challenge those negative thought patterns,
Mm.
and replace them with something more constructive.
So it's about shifting from judgment to compassion, understanding, both for ourselves and other people.
Exactly. And this actually goes back to the lobster analogy we talked about. When a lobster loses, it doesn't just physically retreat. Its brain chemistry changes, making it less likely to fight back in the future. Peterson says the same thing can happen to us. When we constantly criticize ourselves, put ourselves down, we're basically rewiring our brains for failure.
Wow, that's kind of scary. It makes you realize how powerful our own thoughts are. If we're always negative, we're reinforcing those pathways, making it harder to break free from that loser mindset.
Right. But the good news is we can rewire those pathways in a positive way. And it starts with treating ourselves with the same care and respect that we would offer someone we truly want to see succeed.
So, setting healthy boundaries, putting our well-being first, talking to ourselves kindly even when we mess up.
Exactly. And as we build that self-compassion, Peterson encourages us to look at how we communicate with others. He says, be precise in your speech.
Sounds simple enough, but I bet there's more to it than just like proper grammar.
Yeah, Peterson's talking about a deeper kind of precision in how we think, A&D, how we talk. It's about choosing words carefully, being clear about what we mean, making sure our message gets across the right way.
Makes me think about all those times we misunderstand each other, right? Making assumptions about what the other person's thinking or feeling.
Exactly. Peterson says when we're careless with language, using vague terms or emotional rhetoric, it creates confusion, causes conflict, even makes us seem less believable.
So it's about being clear, concise, respectful, even when things are tough or we're talking about emotional stuff.
Exactly. And this precision in speech, it applies to our inner dialogue too. It's about spotting those fuzzy areas in our thinking, the assumptions we haven't examined, those limiting beliefs that hold us back.
Like applying that same carefulness to our own thoughts and beliefs, challenging those mental shortcuts that can distort how we see things.
Exactly. And when we get better at thinking and speaking precisely, we're better at navigating relationships, building trust, resolving conflicts, creating a more harmonious, more productive social environment.
It's amazing how all these rules seem to connect, build on each other. We've covered so much: lobsters, brain chemistry, goals, truth-telling, self-care, even communication. But it's not just about memorizing rules, right? It's about living these principles, doing that constant self-reflection, that personal growth that Peterson talks about so well.
Yeah, you got it. And as we wrap up our deep dive into Peterson's 12 rules, I think there's a powerful takeaway. It's about embracing both the challenges, A&D, the joys of being human, striving for excellence, while also appreciating the simple beauty of life.
This has been such an incredible journey. We've covered so much ground, from those lobsters to brain chemistry, goal setting, truth-telling, self-care, precise communication, and even, the wisdom of petting cats. But it all comes back to putting these principles into practice, to that ongoing process of self-reflection and growth that Peterson talks about.
Beautifully said. As you go out there, remember to stand tall, speak your truth, be kind to yourself, and hey, don't forget to pause every now and then. Pet a cat. Appreciate the wonders of this amazing journey we call life as well.